So basically, here's how I look at it with the whole MMA game and whatnot. The build up to the fight, okay? They're fighting without fighting. They're fighting to get into their heads, into each other's heads. That's why there's so much trash talking. That's why there's an animosity build up. And then, you know what I'm saying? That's the mental warfare. And some people break, that it affects them to the point that when they perform, it don't matter how hard they were training, it don't matter how good they were eating, they still break because their mind was infiltrated, you know what I'm saying, by their opponent. And this is a duality matrix. We're always going to have... See, the thing is, when you go and have a face-off, okay, this is where you could tell who's home and who's not. You know what I'm saying? Who's mentally broken and who's not. I see it every time I see the face-offs. I always call it ahead of time. I'm like, yo, this guy is not there, man. This guy's intimidated. You know what I'm saying? And when you go and look at these face-offs, you got to have that eye of the tiger. The spiritual strength has to be there, but the spirit literally... It screams out of you when you're in that face-off. Now, the face-off, notice they call it a face-off, okay? The face-off because you're facing off with somebody else, but in actuality, you're looking at yourself every time you're doing a face-off against somebody else. It's always going to be you versus you anyway. You know what I'm saying? And if you're mentally broken by an aspect or a version of you, you know what I'm saying? These things are all internal, and you can always tap in and defeat these things, okay? So that when you face them externally, they ain't that fucking tough to begin with. You know what I'm saying? You'll see that. You're like, yo, I was afraid of this the whole time. You get what I'm saying? Because when you're facing off against somebody, you're not really facing off against a person. You're facing off to an energy that's representing that person. Whatever energy is backing that person up is what you're facing off against. Your energy versus their energy. That's why there's some fighters that say, yo, man, make sure you keep that energy when you see me again. Keep the same energy. You know what I'm saying? So the mental warfare goes in. We got mind, body, and spirit. All right. So mind is where the mental warfare comes in on the face-off. When you go and you get in the cage, now you're fighting. That's the body part. That's the physical. Now you're performing. You know what I'm saying? But after you perform and you have blood leaking out, because listen, people think that MMA is a gruesome sport. There's somebody who told me, I don't know how you can watch two people beating the hell out of each other. But at the end of the day, why? Because they're bleeding and they're hitting each other. They're hitting each other when they're playing football. But at the end of the day, it don't matter if they're playing football, baseball, basketball. They're sweating. So sweat and blood, sweat, and tears. Okay? See, they put their tears into their training and then they put blood and sweat while they're performing. So blood and sweat is still the same. It's an essence that comes out of you. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, whatever sport, because sport goes deep too. You know what I'm saying? If you really look at it, they're performing in a squared circle. Every time you look at the stadium or you look at, first of all, it's an octagon. But then when you look at certain stadiums, they're square, but they're surrounded by a circular stadium. And that, you notice how people do waves and everything, right? Because everything's a wave of energy. And when you put your emotions, you talk about people putting these players or the fighters putting their blood, sweat, and tears into what they're doing to perform for you. What do you think we're doing every day? Putting our blood, sweat, and tears performing for some other people on the big stage. And we're all in squares in our houses or at our jobs and whatnot. And we're getting our emotions drained and fed off of, okay? By either it could be a circular dome or a flat plane, whatever you want to look at it as. But you know what I'm saying? The energy's going somewhere. Okay. And now here's the thing about the sport and how life is a game of sport too. Because here's the thing. After you finish fighting, okay, do you notice how there's something called good sportsmanship where they give each other the hand? It don't matter what sport you're playing. They're always gonna give each other a pound and say, good job, good, good shit. You know what I'm saying? And whatever, they're gonna congratulate their opponent if they lost, if they lost or whatever, win, lose, or draw. They're always gonna give a handshake and a hug, right? So now we got mind, mental warfare, body, okay, which is basically you're performing physically, and then spirit, all right, and you leave in good spirits after you play this game. You get what I'm saying? So there's people who say, I want to leave and never come back. But why is that? You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, like, you can make this experience however you want to make it. You know what I'm saying? You're training for something. This is spiritual training at the end of the day. It really ain't, but people make it too physical because it feels so real. You know what I'm saying? It feels so real that you just basically forget that it's a sport. It's a game. You get what I'm saying? I just want to make sure I'm drinking wine, red wine. So cheers to all you beautiful people. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of people get bent up. It feels so real. It feels, you know what I'm saying? It feels so real. So it's hard to not, because everything is about you believing in it. If you believe in this so much, then this is why you get stuck more and more in your body. You know what I'm saying? Everything that you start to experience, these emotions, when it comes down to you having to be responsible for in your relationships, pay bills, and you know what I'm saying? All these extras, because these things are just extras, you know what I'm saying? And you can minimize all these things, you know what I'm saying? But they tell you that, you know, status is an important thing. Nothing wrong with that, you know what I'm saying? But that comes down to what character you're playing here, you know what I'm saying? If you decide to play a character, you want to be a wealthy character, then you need to play that role. You cannot have fear of lack. But if you just want to play the spiritual role, listen, at the end of the day, there's people who go in MMA, they play the heel role, and then they play the good guy role. Just like wrestling, okay? I'll make another video on that separately after this one. But at the end of the day, just pay attention to every day that you wake up, you're living day by day, okay? Well, day by day, you're doing the mental, body, and spiritual by the end of the day. Think about everything you did during your day, how you went about it, okay? How you controlled your emotions, because I'm gonna make a separate video on fear and all these emotions and whatnot. And then at the end of the day, you go to bed with good sportsmanship and your life just gets better and better. And that's a fact, because you went about your day, regardless of how it went, whether it be favorable or unfavorable, everything is perfect. Perfect. But whatever you want to change, you can. But you do that with awareness and consciousness. We'll talk soon.